And welcome to Power Lunch along with Michelle Caruso-Cabrera and Brian Sullivan. I'm Melissa Lee. Tyler Matheson is off today. We start off with that bombshell at Theranos. The Wall Street Journal reporting regulators are considering banning Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes from owning or running any lab for at least 2 years. This follows a journal investigation published in October that questioned the integrity of Theranos' lab results. Holmes came on CNBC late last year to address those claims.
This is what happens when you work to change things, and first they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world. And I have to say I personally was shocked to see that the journal would publish something like this when we had sent them over 1,000 pages of documentation demonstrating that the statements in their piece were false.
Bill George is Harvard Business School professor and CNBC contributor. Jeffrey Sonnenfeld, who will join us shortly, is Senior Associate Dean with Yale School Management. Les Funtleyder, who's here, is with ESquared Asset Management Portfolio Manager. Guys, great to have you with us. Now, collectively, including Jeff, who's going to join us soon, you've called the science into question. You've called the company a scam. You've called the CEO a bad actor. So there's a lot of ground to cover here. Bill, let's start off with you because you actually equate Elizabeth Holmes with the likes of Mike Pearson, the outgoing CEO at Valeant, and Martin Shkreli, the bad boy poster child of biotech. Why?
These are the three bad actors of the pharmaceutical company. They're doing great harm to the pharmaceutical industry. And such a contrast to somebody like Ken Frazier at Merck. It really worries me a great deal, and particularly in a political year when they're going to get a lot of political pushback. Theranos has never been forthcoming about its test results. They've never shared with anyone. I'm on the board of Mayo, where it has a big blood testing business. They won't share anything about how they do things. And you just cannot change medical therapies without adequate testing and validation by major medical centers, more than one, multiple centers. And if you do, you're asking for trouble, and they got trouble. This is the closest thing that the government has to a death penalty, to ban her for 2 years. I mean, short of shutting the whole company down, this is very, very serious. And frankly, I think the allegations are very serious. They should never have gone ahead without adequate testing.
Sure.
Can you imagine if they did testing, Melissa, and they didn't do tests, and you missed some cases of cancer, you missed some hepatitis C, or you missed some HIV/AIDS? How many of those does it take to get a center like a Mayo in deep trouble?
Sure.
Mayo's never going to go do something like that.
To that point, Bill, I want to bring in Les because, I mean, obviously hindsight is 20/20, but you say that it was so obvious that the science just was not there. And in fact, you say that she basically was trying to warp the laws of physics in 3 ways. Why was it so obviously flawed in your view?
Well, we have a large private portfolio of companies, and we look at companies like this all the time, and the basically, it's complicated, but microfluidics just wouldn't allow the world to do what she did, and without evidence, making such a big leap for us just looked really bad. And I'd say we have other companies in our private portfolio, like Health Engine, where we deep dive diligence. And so my question would be to the investors. I mean, where were they, and why weren't they doing the kind of diligence that we do when we look at private companies? This one should have been pretty easy to spot in our judgment.
According to the notes, it says we should explore the question whether or not she got as far as she did because she's a woman. So let's explore that question. Did she get as far as she did because she's a woman? And Silicon Valley has very few successful women that they can point to.
Listen, I would like to see a lot more successful women in Silicon Valley and all over the country. Women like Sheryl Sandberg, who've been very successful. And I just like to see more door open. So I had the same hope for Elizabeth Holmes everyone else had. And I think we didn't, like Les said, we didn't dig into the story. You know, I was reading coming down here, New York Times article last fall, the style section. I mean, you know, this is exactly an example of a golden girl, but she didn't do her homework. And you cannot put people's lives at risk unless you do testing and you have it validated by major medical centers and you reveal that. She said she wouldn't be transparent because she didn't want her competitors to get the data. Meanwhile, she's arguing for the cost transparency. But you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth.
So all of those things are true. So all of those things we've heard. But I'll ask you again, did people look the other way, or were they willing to ask fewer, tougher questions because she's a female?
I think we drank the Kool-Aid, and we liked the story, and it was it was too good to be true. Frankly, if something's too good to be true, it really is. And she got the celebrity board. Frankly, none of those people know anything about medicine. Why didn't she get some leading doctors? Two of the doctors she had quit 2 years ago. But she, what's a celebrity board having people like Henry Kissinger and George Shultz? Come on, give me a break.
And
they don't know anything about health.
Jeff Sonnenfeld, I'm not going to pretend I have any clue about the science. I have no idea. This could be the greatest thing since sliced bread. It may work 10 years out. I have no idea. But when we look at the board, and I made this mistake yesterday, guys, when you go to Theranos' website, it says board and consultants. I thought Bill Frist and some other senators were on the board. They're actually just consultants. Jeffrey Sonnenfeld, what management mistakes can you see at Theranos? What have they screwed up on the management side?
Well, they've gone through some dramatic changes in board governance, Brian. You're right to be confused. At one point, Bill Frist and Bill Fogarty, formerly of the CDC, Henry Kissinger, George Shultz, all these guys were on the board. It was a celebrity roll-up. And when you see that, that's usually a danger sign. We see it whether or not it's at WorldCom or Hollinger or Enron. When you see those celebrities stapled together, they're not people with experience in the field that have time to do the diligence. There's a danger side. As Bill George was suggesting, not only did the original scientist, in fact, disappear, and in this case, because he killed himself and left a note saying the thing doesn't work, not specifying what it was, and his poor widow threatened with defamation for even revealing that. But on top of that, the original board of scientists quit. These are warning signs. When the FDA, when CMS says the stuff doesn't work, why is this still out there? Why does Walgreens still have a partnership? They're trying to get out of it, but where's the diligence?
Jeff, this is obviously a private company. At last valuation, it was $9 billion. If this were a publicly traded company, we'd be seeing the stock decline day after day after day. In terms of board liability, what sort of liability does this board of directors have? Because at a publicly traded company, there would probably be lawsuits at this point.
They'd have tremendous lawsuits. In terms of who knew what when they quit the board, I think it's a good question because their names were used as bait, as magnets to attract other investors. Did they roll up their sleeves and take a look? Did Henry Kissinger and George Shultz and Sam Nunn, these are people who I admire greatly in other spheres. This is not their sphere. What responsibility should they have? We saw in the cases of WorldCom and Enron, they were individually actually culpable and held accountable with great fines for the individual damages.
Jeffrey, is that necessarily a tell? And obviously, Henry Kissinger's political chops are unquestioned. He was on the board of another company, I can't remember, that had a big problem a couple years ago. You forgive?
Hollinger and AIG.
Thank you. Conrad Black's company. I forgot completely. Right. Is this a lesson for investors when you look at a board and you go, oh, wow, I know who that guy is, and oh, look at her, she's whatever, but they're not directly related to either A, running the company, or B, the core business the company is engaged in? Is that necessarily maybe not a red, but maybe a yellow flag?
That is a big danger flag. If you see the marquee names, it's probably time to pull out because they're there covering up for something. This is a company's success of puffery, of pushiness, of promotion. But it has nothing whatsoever in the politics of it. You take a look at the Silicon Valley snake oil that got caught up in this. Some very prominent investors, Steve Jurvetson was one of the original backers of this company, and other people throwing their good names, Larry Ellison. And people started thinking, well, who am I of dust and ashes?
Is it because she's a woman?
No. I heard you trying to bait that before.
No, hold on. Wait, I'm going to hold on. In the notes, it says Bill George told one of our producers that he thinks we need to explore the question of whether or not it's a woman. I didn't bring it up. I bring it up because, but I am bringing it up with you.
Well, Bill ducked away from it after he threw it out there. I guess he's trying to bait me.
Thank you for pointing it out.
But these Harvard guys are cowards. But I'll tell you, there are times where
Jeff, I was with you until you said that.
Smack.
No,
I
don't think it's because she's a woman. I think it's this high profile. It's the high profile.
There are women. I think Marissa Mayer at this point is getting a tougher time because she's a woman. I do think if you take a look at some of the activist investors that have uniquely targeted the president of Bank of New York Mellon, the CEO of PepsiCo, the CEO of Kraft, the past CEO of DuPont, and you add it all up, what is it? With high performance, I do think some women have been unfair targets. This is not an example of that. You took a look at Martin Scarelli getting away with what he got away with at Turing. That he's a guy. You'll take a look at Mike Pearson, evaluate what he got away with. He's a guy. I do think it has to do with smoke screens and people not doing their homework and due diligence and not gender on this topic.
To that point, Les.
Yeah, I do too, Jeff.
Sorry.
Jeff,
quickly, Bill.
Well, I would say that.
I do too.
I'm sorry, Bill.
Hold on, guys.
No, go ahead.
Let me just ask Les a question here, since we have this little moment here. Les, what ripple effect does this have on funding other biotech companies out there in Silicon Valley? Does this totally gum up the works? Does it make people really question every single slideshow that is presented to them about the wonders of whatever new process the company claims to have?
Absolutely, and it should. I think that. I think Jeff's point, and I'm speaking as a Columbia person now, that the snake oil that's been sold and the valuations have been sold without a lot of diligence. I think a lot of this is going to come home to roost over time, and I think a lot of people invested just because of famous names. And it's not just healthcare; there's a lot of it in technology too. I think we're going to see more of these types of blowups, maybe not to the same extent that this, but certainly I see valuation compression. Certainly in private healthcare, which we would welcome, by the way, because we think private healthcare valuations have gotten way out of whack.
What if, Les, though, how confident, we've said a lot of things like snake oil in this interview, and so, how confident are we it is? What if we're wrong? What if it works? What if this is right?
Maybe it's too early to tell.
And everything actually Elizabeth Holmes saying proves to be correct, and everybody else is wrong, and the CDC is just behind the times. What then?
Well,
what would that mean?
The science tells us it doesn't work. You know, she had 250 tests.
Not yet.
She said she could do, and they didn't work.
Not yet.
Well,
SpaceX. They
the
launched 5 rockets before they successfully landed one. I'm just playing the other side, guys. I'm just saying, what if we're wrong?
Show me,
not worth $9 billion at that
show
point.
me.
It's failing the test. Maybe she can turn lead to gold.
Show what, Les?
Yeah, I say you have to have data to support all these claims. Without data, it doesn't matter. I mean, we're still waiting for Enron to come around and show the numbers. I don't think in this case.
You think this is Enron, Les?
I don't think it may not be as deliberate, but certainly the CMS certainly thinks there's a lot of questions here that are Enron-esque.
Bill, last word on Enron. You said something that I wanted to hear it.
It was absolutely Enron-esque.
I agree with Les. I agree with Les. We've got to see the data. Medtronic would never submit a product without data validated by multiple medical centers. And I think it's not because she's a woman, it's because we drank the Kool-Aid. We drank the Kool-Aid with Valiant. No, I'm serious. Investors need to talk to people like Les.
You said that.
They need to talk to Les, not to need to talk to Les, not to people that are looking at false business model. You have to show us the data, guys.
And I will say this. Guys, we got to wrap it up, but I will say this as a red flag. When Elizabeth Holmes, that soundbite we ran, said, guys, I sent the Journal 1,000 pieces of information, that, to me, the flag goes up, because nobody should need 1,000 pages
of information.
Of data.
Right.
That's, you go through this.
The government said the exhibits are missing. They said it's not there.
Okay.
And furthermore, the pinprick that she said she could do, it doesn't work. 250 tests didn't work.
Guys, got to leave it there. Our Ivy League panel.
And the Journal nailed the story.
Hold on, guys. We got to leave it there. Thank you. Bill George, we'll see you a little bit later on. He's with Harvard. Jeffrey Sonnenfeld with Yale, and Les Funtleyder with ESquared, and formerly Columbia.